Hi, welcome to the spoiler section. Today we're talking about Moana. This is the part I was looking forward to in the review because I was like, did they just Disney the hell out of this movie? Well, what's your take on that? Like,
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to lay the foundation that I had an enjoyable time.
Sure.
Okay. The movie was entertaining. I personally enjoy a hero's journey, adventure type of buddy comedy.
Totally.
You know. But beyond that, it seems like the creators of the movie they definitely fell back on standard Disney trope.
Absolutely.
Right. So, powerful female figure, sidekick, buddy character,
Yep.
and then a few anthropomorphized animals to
Round
fill
out.
it on it.
Yeah.
To their credit, the movie was self-aware enough to point all of that out.
I'm not a fan of lamp shading personally. Like, oh look, we pointed it out, so it's fine. Like, I'm like, no, that's just me though. I mean, I know a lot of people.
It's probably not fine, but better, but better than not.
it.
Yeah, better than ignoring it at all.
Yeah.
And overall, I think the elements of what makes a good story is that it leads you through a bunch of different events, but you do get that moral or underpinning
Sure.
part of the story. That's what's really important. That's what
themes and stuff.
yeah, that's what's important about any kind of story that you tell. And in a lot of oral tradition and stuff like that, you get stories that have that underpinning moral, as opposed to concentrating on certain details.
Yeah.
But it's, I think, the biggest problem I have, and this is more analyzing it from a personal view as opposed to trying to analyze it as a filmmaker, is that because they tried to approach it as a mishmash of just calling it Polynesian culture as opposed to calling it, this is mythology of Auli'i, and this is mythology of Fiji, and this is mythology of Moana. And
too broad a brush.
I think so. And that's what a bunch of people are going to have a problem with.
Yeah.
But I also think Disney's also in a rock and a hard place with that.
Yeah.
Because it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. Because if they focused on one, then
and the others would be like, what?
This is completely wrong by our mythology, or it's not, you're just focusing on one thing.
Right.
Unless they had strong enough or in-depth enough telling of a specific tale that's unique or close enough to one particular island.
Yeah.
Or one particular culture.
So that they could at least claim like some sort of authenticity. Like they would have a source to cite.
Exactly.
Which personally I would have much preferred that approach.
Well, I think I think in the end they just chose something that they could try and make strides towards in a general sense because they want to be inclusive and things like that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound like it's apologetic or anything like that, but
I don't know, man.
It's I'm sure it was a difficult decision, and this is what we have.
Yeah.
So,
because maybe it's just me, but I felt like there was a lot of strange gender politics at play, where like Maui wasn't allowed to be like a hero or flat out be able to save any situation, because then it would make people would immediately call Moana a damsel in distress.
Right,
and
right.
So it made Maui wildly ineffective as a character, which was really disappointing.
And fairly inaccurate. So...
He's got all of these amazing deeds. He lists them off, and you're like, this is going to be so cool. I cannot wait to see this guy in action. And he doesn't do anything that actually furthers their goal.
Yeah, so so through compromise of including that character. And I think, and you know, I don't know this for a fact, but I think if they're going to tell a story from Polynesia, Maui is a great character to choose from, because Maui does exist in pretty much all of those mythologies.
Sure.
But he's not portrayed as he is in those mythologies. I mean, to a certain extent, he is. Powerful character. They list off things that he's done, and this is all part of that. But he's
not pouty.
Well, yeah, no. Well, the other thing is, and I think you pointed out really well, is he can't be the demigod Maui, because he would solve all of her problems for the most part.
That was the problem I had with the ocean too. The ocean is a character that actively helps quite often. Like, they kind of overplayed the amount. Like, when it's constantly throwing her back on the boat and stuff, like, that was funny, but I was like, why didn't the water just bring her right where it needs to be?
And they do talk about that, though, as part of exposition, and...
I just thought the reasoning was flimsy at best.
And
then when they're fighting the lava thing at the end of the movie, that turns out not to be... Anyway, like, it puts its hand in the water, like, oh, its weakness is water, and you're like... Hey, Ocean, you want to help us out, maybe? Or hit it with a wave or something?
And the approach that the ocean takes, that's not necessarily inaccurate in the fact that it's about Moana making her choices and finding out who she is and doing the deeds. Because the ocean actually plays a much larger part in various mythologies, and so I guess what they were trying for is, hey, this is a guiding force, right? But through their characterization, though, it moves it from this, overall, movement of the universe kind of thing to, hey, guy.
Hey, I'm the ocean. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's probably where it missed the mark for you on that one.
Well, what I said unfocused earlier, they could have easily made like the grandmother character could have taken a lot of the role that the ocean had, of like, this is where we need to be going. Like her spirit stingray thing was so cool. I actually thought her storyline, like, I connected with the most. Of all of, like, the character connections, I felt the grandma and Moana's relationship was the strongest.
Yeah.
And if they'd have made her a little more... If they'd have dialed back the amount that the ocean needed to help them by, like, throwing them back on the boat and stuff, and just had, like, a more subtle version of her, like, the grandmother's spirit. Because, like, I was really digging a lot of stuff they did with her until the scene where she, like, materializes on the boat. And it's like, it's okay. And I just think it undercut Moana's... growth as a character, that scene. But it would have... that's why it's like, it's so weirdly unfocused. It's like they clearly wanted to have this grandmother thing, and then they also wanted to have the ocean, but they also wanted Maui, and they couldn't tell who was gonna, like, really be the Obi-Wan of the story. And then, I don't know, there's a lot of scenes of her in the ocean, like, okay, now I'm like, you can tell, like, the screenwriter, like, okay, they need tension. I guess Maui's gonna be, like, focused on the hook, and she's not going to be on board with him getting the hook for some reason. She's just not going to be on board. Like,
yeah, no, I agree with you on a certain level, but I think that's also indicative of Disney style storytelling.
Right.
I mean, if you look at most of the other Disney movies, they suffer, or if you want to call it that, from that kind of storytelling. But if their intention is never to be this highly accurate, beat by beat kind of storytelling, then that's not. Disney's in the business of fairy tales.
Wonder.
Yeah. So with fairy tales, you gloss over a lot of motivations and things like that, and you focus on what your true story is.
Right.
So.
But when I try and suss out the true story for Moana, it's very difficult to point to scenes that actually go in that direction.
Well, I think in Moana, it really is told by the songs.
Yeah.
Right. So the songs play huge, play huge roles in helping her realize, where she came from, who she is based upon who her people are.
Right.
And that kind of goes to the fact that in various Polynesian cultures, you look to the past to move you forward.
Right.
Right. So I can see where they're coming from using those songs to help propel, her growth as a character.
The songs are so informative that honestly they leave very little for the dialogue parts, and maybe that's why I felt like pacing wise it was a very strange movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the filmmaker's purpose was, and if it was trying to tell a cultural story, or culturally significant story in a culturally significant manner.
Right.
I mean, I can see elements of how they tried to do that.
Yeah.
But in the end, they made a lot of choices which I didn't really agree with.
Yeah.
First of all, there is no reason to make up any character.
Yeah.
In that.
There's plenty of people to pull from.
There's plenty of people to pull from.
Is Moana a made-up character?
Oh, Moana is, yeah. Yeah. Her name means ocean.
Oh, crying out loud.
So, I mean, there's that tie-in or whatnot, but yeah, she's a made-up character. I mean, she's probably derived from, certain sources and whatnot.
Is there a lot of female characters in Polynesian?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. Because this brings me to another point, and I read this article, which I found, surprisingly enough, on the Huffington Post.
Oh, wow.
And I really apologize for not remembering the academic who wrote it, but he was into Oceania studies and Polynesian cultures and things like that. And I believe he's of Tongan descent.
Oh, cool.
And so I really apologize for not remembering the name. I should have been more prepared. But he wrote a really good article on where is the goddess Hina. So in a lot of Polynesian culture, there's always pairings, right? There's that duality,
right?
Representations of the sun and the moon, and Maui has a counterpart, and that's the goddess Hina, or a Hina-like goddess, depending on which culture you're reading up on. And she sometimes plays an opposing force, but usually some sort of cooperative force.
That would have been awesome.
So, yeah. And, if you look at it, you might be able to argue that Moana is the Hina force, because Hina is sometimes described as sister or mother or grandmother, anything like that. But she falls short because she doesn't have enough agency in and of herself to play the role of the goddess and how important she is. I mean, if you even look at the art, maybe that's the closest description, but they decided to totally put the grandmother as Amakua, which is like a family ancestor spirit. Okay. And that's pretty much clear as day. Right. Yeah. Becomes the Ray and all that. But yeah, and you miss the mark in your authenticity when you don't bring in that duality.
Yeah, that seems well. And that's the weird thing, right? Because there's a lot of gender politics in Moana and how things play out, and it seems like that would have been a great way to hedge a lot of that stuff while maintaining authenticity. Like, I mean, it's a lot of the Rey Star Wars thing, right? Like where they're afraid to put a female character in too much danger, or to have her fail at all at anything. And it would have been really nice if there was, some sort of counterbalance to that. I don't know. Moana is such like a strange character. It's hard to describe her because outside of like,
well, they wanted to make sure that she wasn't like every other Disney princess.
But she kind of is.
Well, it's Disney, so
yeah.
Yes.
They went to such great lengths to make sure that they didn't call her a princess. That felt very strange. Is that important to the Polynesian aspect of it, or is that just?
I think that was an important thing for Disney.
Okay.
Because they wanted to, because they've always been chastised for
princess worship.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm sure they wanted to create a character who was more of a chief.
Sure.
In their description and the journey and the concerns and responsibilities and things like that, and I think they've made inroads to that. But yeah, it comes down to, hey, it's not this thing for real, guys. It's not this thing. So now that we've told you that it's not this thing, you kind of think it's this thing.
Yeah, it was so bizarre.
But to go back to some of the characters, like Maui's depiction, I can see why lots of people had problems with that. Because he's got a somewhat modern outlook on Polynesian males.
Oh.
Large, obese, things like that.
Like
that's not the impression I got.
Yeah.
But if you look at the stories of Maui, he's a very strong person, and he's very athletic and agile, because a lot of times he's climbing mountains and swinging from how they portrayed him in swinging around stuff and all that kind of stuff. I guess it's just the depiction that a lot of people had problems with. And
see, I thought the way he looked added to his demigodness. Like the fact that he doesn't look like he should be able to do these things, but he just totally is just like, whatever.
Yes, and the answer to that is that is your Eurocentric view.
I get No.
Yeah, personally, I mean, I understand that how something is displayed, or how something is perceived, is very important, or how something is depicted is how important it is to be perceived.
Totally.
And so if you put in this image that everyone sees, that's what they're going to think the default image is.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's why I said, again, just
for
it's a
them
good place to start, but look deeper into the mythology.
It would have been better if their representation was what is the generally accepted representation,
rather
than this new take on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not necessarily a new take, but more of a like I said, modern. This it follows in line more with how maybe Polynesian males are perceived now. If you want to do what I think most of the Polynesian cultures view Maui, should have just modeled it off the Rock. I mean, he's. I mean, come on. Is there a better living example? Probably not.
Yeah.
But like I said, personally, I don't have too much trouble, but I understand where they're coming from there.
Definitely.
And then, but like I said before, it's the made up characters which I don't get.
What was with those coconut pirate things? What the hell was that?
Well, apparently that's based off of these goblin-like creatures from the Solomon Islands.
Okay.
I don't know anything about that mythology, so I can't speak to it. But they were definitely played into the movie as a danger / comic relief.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, not to get too pessimistic, but those toys are going to sell like hotcakes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, I was when we were talking about this earlier. I said there's a lot of big-lipped alligator moments, and when I say that, it's a reference to All Dogs Go to Heaven. There's a scene where they fall and they run into this weird alligator who's like going to eat them, but then doesn't, and they sing a big musical number, and then the story resumes. Like they leave, and it could have never happened, and you wouldn't know the difference story-wise. And I felt like there was a lot of those in Moana, where I was like, that was cool. Oh, that didn't change anything. I felt especially that pirate, the coconut pirate scene. It was like literally like, ooh, we gotta fill like 15 minutes. I guess they run into coconut pirates that are a strangely overwhelming force. Like they made them so gnarly that it was like, I don't believe that they escaped. Like it felt like stormtrooper accuracy was like a major factor in their escape.
But to go back to other characters that they put in, like Te Kā, which so major spoiler. Te Kā, the villain or villainess, the lava monster, is the corrupted version of Tafiti, which is the first island goddess of creation kind of thing.
Right.
Now, I don't know anything about Tafiti, but Te Kā is definitely, I mean, they've stated that's just a made-up character concept.
Wow.
So, which I'm glad they say on one end, because that could be clearly misconstrued to be Pele, which is goddess of fire and of creation and everything like that, and that would be a horrible depiction of So I'm kind of glad that they just said no, we made that one up. I'm like, okay, sure, but why?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, really, it's a point A to point B story. Throw stuff in the way, and it feels like they didn't need to make up that last barrier. If we saw that like the goddess was like dying and that was causing the blackness to take over in things, then it's just a ticking clock story instead of this, which it kind of is. Like they play it off like it's a ticking clock, but they don't really define it well enough or what's going on. But if they'd have played that ticking clock, they could have put anything in the way there. They could have really added anything between them and that island instead of making up this big lava monster thing.
Right. And it goes to some of the choices they made for the movie. Like another element is the 1,000 years of no traveling. I have no idea where that came from.
Yeah.
That's I mean, as much as I know, and I don't, I do not profess to be any expert whatsoever.
Sure.
But I've never heard that there was a large period of time where there was no traveling or whatever.
Don't go beyond the reef. What? What is that?
There's
no way.
That's why I couldn't. I mean, when I first saw that, first thought in my mind was like, what? What are you talking about? It's all about going beyond the reef. And then they reveal that that's a story plot. I'm like, oh, okay. Well,
I felt like that was so unnecessary. The conflict between her and her dad was such a non-conflict. He's like, no, don't do that. But I'm gonna. No. All right, I'm gonna go now. And then she shows up again. He's like, it's a good thing you did that. It's like, just don't have that silly thing there. Like, it was. I feel like it was only there so that Moana would leave on her own. Mm-hmm. And that was it.
And that's exactly probably the reason why.
Yeah, and I get really tired of... I don't like stories that point A is justified by point B instead of... Because it should be the other way around, right? It should naturally go from point A to point B, not you have to reverse engineer it to that extent. I felt a lot of this movie was that. Like, they wanted this, and they wanted this, and then they had to really... sort of twist things and meld them so that they kind of ended up where they wanted to go. Like,
yeah, I mean, personally, I give them a lot of slack when it comes to storytelling.
Yeah.
Because I understand when you storytell, if you're trying to tell a fairy tale, it's not the details, it's the journey, I guess.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, so one thing that I was really confused on was that crab creature with all the gold on its back. Mm-hmm. That felt completely just confusing and out of... Is that... Do you know if that's based in mythology?
from what I know,
Mm-hmm.
there are monsters of the deep.
Yeah.
And I believe there is a crab or whatnot. I can't say whether that name or that interpretation is accurate. I just don't know.
I mean, you want to talk about a big-lipped alligator moment. Oh my goodness. Like, he literally sang like a goofy song. It doesn't... Like, they got the hook from him, so it's not plot-wise completely irrelevant, but it just went for so long. I felt like it was a really long scene because it's the Flight of the Conchords guy. And they were like, yeah, it's great to have a song from him. Let's make sure to give him a whole song. Like, it was just, I don't know, was that just me? Maybe that was just me. What did you think of that scene?
It is a Disney moment. I'll admit, I'm giving a lot of slack because I'm expecting a Disney movie. Okay, so if this one was a non-Disney movie, then yes, I would be like, okay, well, this doesn't really fit.
Right.
Why are you adding this in? Okay. Why aren't you adding these things in?
I feel like rather than a Disney movie where a lot of the tropes sort of work in its favor, like say Beauty and the Beast or something, where you have those big, like those moments that sort of sell really well, and like the side characters being the cutlery and whatever, helps because it works in the mythos of the world with the curse and all that. I felt like in this movie, a lot of the Disney tropes were actively in the way of like what was supposed to be the story or the meat of it, you know? I felt like there was no...
Well, let me put it to you. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this. All right. So let's say you're telling a story.
Sure.
And you're saying, okay, so here's Maui, and he's lost his hook, right? Because of some big fight he had and he lost it into the deep. So here's this another villain who has claimed his hook for himself.
Right.
And Maui must go in and steal it from him.
Sure.
So Maui the trickster, Maui the hero, he's going to distract the monster and steal his hook back.
Right.
Now add Disney on there.
Right.
Oh, so the monster's not really a monster.
He's like a guy.
He's a guy, and he's just over the top.
Right.
Things like that.
But he didn't. I would have liked it better if they'd have played the menace as genuine, as like a genuine threat to them. He's so goofy.
That's true.
That like he undercuts any of the tension that I think that scene really deserved, and they didn't want to give Maui the win on that one. They had to have Moana really be the one to do it, and I don't know. Like
they have to fall back on their production rules.
Yeah, and I just felt like that I was watching a list of their production rules more than I was watching the story of like these characters. I felt a lot like checklists getting made.
That's true. When I was watching the movie, I wasn't thinking along those lines. I mean, you think about it and analyze it after you try and enjoy it.
That was me during the movie.
I know, and that just may be a
definitely personal.
yeah. But it also might be a product of your training.
Oh, so, absolutely. I mean, being a filmmaker always changes the way you see things.
That's what your professors always tell us. Like, no, you'll never enjoy a movie because you'll be analyzing for every little detail.
That's true.
All right.
We should probably wrap this up.
Okay. Okay.
Let's go ahead and we'll do a recommend, not recommend again, just in case anyone didn't see the spoiler-free section. And we'll just get your closing thoughts.
Okay. So, closing thoughts. I enjoyed the movie. Had a nice little adventure story. And I'll admit, watching the movie, trying to enjoy it for what it is, I was reminded of home. I got choked up a little bit, which reminds me that I really need to go back and visit people. And I know they're actually angry with me because it's been a long time. But but yeah, I enjoyed the movie. I do recommend people to go see it. But again, I can't stress this enough. If at all you enjoy, any of the Polynesian cultures or anything that you see in Moana, please look deeper into the stories. Do your research, talk to people, read more, and become more involved in the culture, learn more about the culture, and then, tell somebody else about it, and just perpetuate that, because that's how you keep a culture alive, is to find its stories, find what's important, and then pass that on. So Moana's a great start, and they definitely has lots of issues, but enjoy it for what it is, and look deeper into it.
Nice. For me, Moana's a earnest attempt that is frustratingly unfocused as a film. The fact that it's also not entirely authentic really also takes away from my personal enjoyment of it, because part of the reason I went to see it was to really try and engage with these new stories. I really enjoy mythology. I really enjoy learning the stories of other cultures and stuff, and to find that this was Disney doing the thing Disney's been criticized for 20 years doing, it's frustrating to hear. And the movie doesn't have enough, for me, the movie doesn't have enough good things going on to really offset that too much. It's just kind of there. I imagine this will be one of the Disney movies that kind of gets forgotten along the way. Maybe the songs are good enough to really hold it afloat for a while, but for me, it's a lot of checklists. If you're familiar with the Disney checklist, there's a lot of them going off there. Like I said, I felt like the tropes got in the way of this story, that in a way that usually doesn't happen with Disney stories. There's a lot of very sort of political things going on with the storytelling, both in the cultural aspect and the gender aspects of everything that's going on,
and the merchandising.
So it's hamstrung by a lot of things that I felt like ultimately got in the way of it being a genuinely good, memorable movie. It's like I don't know. It's just there. If you really love Disney, you're already going to see this. If you're on the fence, I'd say wait, or don't see it. The good thing that we could get out of this is using it as a jumping off point. Tangential learning is a great way to get people started to learn about other cultures and things like that. So I embrace that positive aspect of it. So that would be my way to recommend it as well. I'm going to follow your suit on that one, because I feel like that's really the best case thing that comes out of this film, is people going off and learning, wait, that didn't feel right. What did they do there? Or, I'm certainly going to, because there's a lot of really interesting things in the film that I felt like were hamstrung by merchandising and politics and Disney itself. So if you hate Disney, you're going to hate this movie. If you like Disney, you're probably going to like this movie. It's nothing unexpected, and really, much like my rambling, terribly unfocused. So on that note, that'll wrap us up for Stubtown today. Remember, if you'd like to be a part of the show or on the show, just email us at contact@psu.tv, and we'll try and get you involved in some way. I'm TJ Hunt.
I'm Jimmy Hatcher.
And I'll see you next week.